So we thought it would be a nice idea to do an EUC podcast. And here we are doing it.
Yes.
So I suppose the first thing we should do is introduce everybody.
Yep.
So why don't we go around the table and briefly say, okay, hi, I'm Mark Schaffer. You probably know me. You might have seen me in the ESDF videos, which is the Security Defence Fund. I'm also part of PET. And I have a little bit of an addiction to EUC, or electric unicycles. Anyway.
I am Nikos. I share the same addiction as Mark.
Well, junkies here.
I'm part of PT as well. I am a mechanic. What about you?
Yeah, so same. I'm a big addict as well. My name's Washington, by the way. Yeah, I like working with electric brands, and I love UCs.
And I'm a seater. I've been riding for the last 3 years and just, addicted to EUCs as well, and hopefully more.
Okay. And you might have seen Washington on Electroheads, and who are all friends of ours. The Seater, you've got your own channel, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, but it's not EUC. It started off EUC related and then just went into a different direction. But no, there will be more content coming up.
All right, and we have flown in from Sweden via Zoom, Francois. Francois, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm Francois. I'm known as Super Curio in the EUC forums. I'm here as a guest to talk about the V12 and Inmotion. And my EUC right now I'm riding a Shaman is the only vehicle I have. I don't have a car or anything like that, so I do everything with it, including riding in the snow and on the ice like today.
Okay, hardcore,
nice.
So I think that kind of makes you two probably the hardest. So Francois and Asita probably win the award. I'm probably Nikos as well. Right, fine.
No, but
I'm probably soft.
He did a serious jump earlier, which kind of put me to shame. I was
Yeah,
like,
fair
well.
Okay, so look, let's get into it. V8, blast from the past. So they've increased the battery to 718 watt-hours and called it the V8S. Now, we've all got a soft spot for this wheel because,
I still have one.
well, look, the thing is everyone's gone Uber wheels, and people have kind of forgotten that actually something that weighs about 14, 15 kg can do 20 miles an hour, has an awesome trolley handle, is really tight, isn't going to kill you. You can go into a restaurant, just easily just shove it under the table. Super useful. Do you know what I mean?
Even
Super useful.
House.
And also it ain't going to break the bank. It's it's reasonably priced. It's a reasonably priced wheel.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And also, well, obviously, big one for our younger viewers and people who want to learn. Great wheel to let. We all learn on the V8, right?
I was on the V5 and then the V8 shortly after.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that's worth a thought. V13. So we've had some teaser shots. So it's huge, is the takeaway. Massive.
Inmotion are talking the talk as well. It's going to be the best ever wheel.
So
well,
they're giving it large.
Is it supposed to look similar to the V12?
Well, it Francois, you saw the teaser. It sort of looks like an outsized V12, but it's way bigger. It's like, well,
does it look pretty? Because V12 will slant.
It doesn't look pretty.
It's aesthetics.
Literally, it looks like it's the same. It might have suspension. Don't know.
It's got suspension.
Yeah, it might, but also it's going to be super heavy. I mean, again, we're going to be 40 kg plus.
Heavier than the V12 that we have now?
Oh yeah, totally. It's massive. I mean, it's like, okay, so basically the teaser's like this. You've got.
It's not easy to carry it around. It's okay to ride.
So you got like that, and then that's the V12, right? And then they've got. Meh.
Mate, it looks like a
It looks
toaster.
like an igloo.
It's like that. It's like they've got the V12 and then they've got this massive tombstone behind it. And with the note it says, it's the fastest wheel ever.
You're not selling it.
So I have to look at the camera. That was a terrible
It was pretty
join.
good.
Sorry, no more join.
The fastest wheel ever. Anyway, sorry. Okay, what can you do next one? Right, so, yeah. Okay, so
Can't
the
hear
V13.
Francois, what's going on?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was muted. There's not that much that we know, but there's a few things we don't know. Like we don't know the capacity of the battery But we know that it's not like Sherman, it's less, because there's a few influencers, people who talk with Inmotion in the forums, and like people were asking, oh, I hope it's at least the same capacity as a Sherman or Commander, and everything. I think that would not be the wheel for you. So I guess they have some spec, and they're not supposed to talk about it, but they leak some information that way. So
I mean,
that won't be as big battery.
It's a proper moment, isn't it? Because, I mean, look, Inmotion, for anyone who knows, the conservative, for years they did nothing like the same old, slow. Oh, please be, is that Please Be Careful is King's song, isn't it?
Please be careful.
No, Please Be Careful.
That's Inmotion.
Is it?
Yes.
Anyway, so
Yes,
very
yes,
conservative,
yes,
tilt back, the whole thing, very annoying. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, we've got to make fast wheels, and they announced the V12. And now they're saying that they're literally making the fastest wheel known to man. This thing, could probably take off if you sort of like had some wings on your arms.
Crazy, isn't it? It's like, Teletubbies going PG. It's like all of a sudden they've positioned themselves.
Yeah, it's like Teletubby porn or something. It's just like something there. I mean, the world's gone mad. It's a new normal.
Really, guys.
Anyway.
Crazy brand
But
position.
will they be capable of doing that without putting our lives at risk?
Well, okay, that segues very neatly into the main thrust of this conversation. We'll probably edit all this down.
Will we live another day?
Okay, so V12. Right, so the V12 is announced. Inmotion did it the right way. So they consulted the community. They pushed some prototypes out to the community, out to some notable riders. People gave their comments. They made some adjustments. So they didn't make the wheel in isolation. And, we told Inmotion that we needed more power, we needed more speed, and they gave us this wheel. Now, the real significant thing for me is that previous to that, it was really only Gotway, and then obviously, Veteran came in. But really, if you wanted to go at sort of 40 miles an hour, or 60 kilometers an hour, you weren't really sport for choice. And you had to sort of take some proper compromises, like Gotway, you didn't expect it to be waterproof, did you?
Basically.
You didn't expect it, not to cut out on you without any, so suddenly you've got like a company with the heritage, if you can use that word, Inmotion. So it's waterproof, it's safe, it's a cohesive product, it's thought through, producing a wheel that has the performance and the agility and the power and the range of what we're used to from the likes of Gotway. Big moment. And I was quite surprised, actually, personally, that the community weren't more... Because I remember talking to you about it. You were like, yeah.
What, the V12 was?
Yeah. You were like,
this is a funky-looking wheel. Like,
yeah,
it's
not
the best-looking thing.
All right, but it's a big moment for EUC that suddenly there's a wheel with that kind of performance. That's
16 inches as well.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was a big...
agile.
Anyway, the wheel turns up. I first rode it at fully charged, and I was like, nah. And you rode it, didn't you? And you were like, nah.
No. Especially because the power pads make a difference.
Right, so this is it. So when we got our demo, we slapped some pads on it. Suddenly the thing was made. Also, I guess the ride mode, you kind of put it in soft and you fiddled with that.
Yes.
And suddenly the thing's making all sorts of sense. It feels a bit like a neck, but more stable. Not really. I don't know. How would you? It feels like its own thing, really. More like a 16X, if anything.
I would say
it's so agile, but it's strong as well, so you can actually accelerate. It's really torquey.
Mm-hmm.
But so in the first V12, what I didn't like was the braking. So the wheel, you couldn't brake. I couldn't brake with it.
Right, which was the main complaint.
Software update,
Even
with the pads. Even with the pads, really, so I couldn't.
Okay, I didn't try that one,
when I'm riding on traffic, I have a few seconds, to stop.
Yep.
That's it. With the V12, that wasn't possible. I had to maneuver around.
Well, you stopped now.
That's not great.
You mean you have to dodge and weave? It's not great, is it?
It's meant to swerve.
So that brings us quite nicely onto what went wrong. So once people started receiving stock, suddenly there are a few stories of cutouts. And it was like... Now, okay, look, with every launch of a new... And Roberto, who you will probably meet in a further podcast, who's our colleague, and has been riding EUCs for longer than anyone, I mean, proper innovator. He's always like, don't get the first batch, don't get the first batch. Every time you get the first batch of a wheel, there's going to be something. And he's kind of right. There is usually something. Obviously, if you buy from someone reputable, then they're going to go on that journey with you and they'll put it right. But ultimately, it's if you can sort of be bothered with the hassle or not, or if you want to wait for batch 2 or batch 3. So anyway, but the fact that Inmotion had kind of tried to do a lot of their beta testing beforehand, it was a bit of a shocker. Now, there are a lot of theories about this. A lot of engineers opened it up and straight away said, Mosfets are too small. Why are they using 100-volt Mosfets in a 100-volt wheel?
What's the standard?
Me too.
Well, the standard, everybody else has gone up to, Francois, you're probably the best guy on this. What everyone else has gone up to bigger FETs, haven't they, for 100-volt?
Yes.
Yeah, so all the other wheels, only Inmotion keeps these smaller, physically smaller FETs. And every other 100.8 volt wheel have usually 125 volt rated MOSFETs. So there's a buffer. And Inmotion chose to pick MOSFET that are rated below the base voltage that the wheel is operating at. So that's why EcoDrift, your colleagues from Russia, like more than 6 months ago, they said, "Ooh, that's weird. I hope Inmotion calculated that well."
Well, there's a few theories that I have. I mean, like number one. This is Francois. This is coming from your meeting, isn't it? Because like Francois had a big meeting with some engineers at Inmotion who said that they believe in these MOSFETs because they've tested them previously and they perform way beyond what's on the spec sheet. So the manufacturer of the MOSFETs put 100 volts safe limit, but in Inmotion's hands, they've found that they could, quite frankly, push them way harder than that. And ultimately, their attitude is, well, this is a product that we know and trust. And with something as critical as that, they're going to stick to something that they know and trust. So it's kind of understandable. It's not like they made a wacky decision here. So I think it's worth saying that. So
from an external point of view, it seems that just absurd, But talking with these engineers, it was exactly that. They used these MOSFETs, like this specific model, in a V8, in a V10, and they thought that's the best thing. We trust it now. We have proof. So we tested it also at the type of voltage for the V12. It works. Well, that's what we're going to choose. The thing is that they didn't test maybe 1,000 of them, or like 12 times 1,000 of them, because there's 12 MOSFET in a wheel. So by kind of ignoring the specification of Infineon, the manufacturer of the MOSFET, they took a big risk because they tested a few of them and it worked. And then they thought that would translate to all of them.
Okay.
That's a Scotway move.
Yeah, well, I guess, for whatever reason, that's the way they went ahead. Personally, I kind of have this theory that at the point that the YouTubers and the influencers came back and said, well, braking's a problem, they've altered the firmware. And as we know, braking puts the heaviest demand on the wheel. So if they're probably carrying a problem that they didn't spot, they've adjusted the firmware, and that's exposed the issue for me.
Yeah, that's true. When you brake, the MOSFET work in the reverse way. So they take the lower voltage based on the rotation speed and the lower current of the motor, and they convert that to a higher voltage than the voltage of the battery. So there's this conversion of voltage the other way. So more problem when you brake.
So interesting one. So look, ultimately, I don't think. We've been looking into this for quite a while, haven't we? And I don't think this is a simple case of Inmotion just completely dropping the ball. The difficulty is, look, these things happen with new products, and really the important thing, and this kind of comes back to the veteran issue, the Ep.1 issue, is what happens when it happens. So how do these companies communicate with us? What is the process once there's an obviously a crucial fault which could result in somebody being seriously injured or worse? And at that point, I think as a community, we need to be clear with these guys about what should happen next. And that's what we've been trying to do. So we've met with Joey, who's one of the sales executives, and he's been relaying this to the new CEO, who I think used to work for Honor or someone. And you've been talking to the engineers and just trying to convince them effectively to play ball in the way that we play ball, say, in Europe and in the UK and the US, and do the right thing. So this is the difficulty. So what they did is they released a statement. The first statement was great. So they went, guys, there's a problem, right? So they're transparent and say, look, there's been a few cutouts. We're looking into it. Don't ride the wheel, okay? Where it went wrong was they then released a statement to say, guys, it's a bad batch of Mosfets. But the good news is we can figure out if you've got bad Mosfets on your board by running this test.
Actually, really fun test.
It's a good test. But now, the test is it's not impossible, but you need to be quite a strapping lad to kind of, it's not a light wheel, and you have to chuck it around a bit.
It rules me out then.
Right. The problem was that after some wheels successfully passed the test, they cut out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I have a real problem, right?
So they passed the test.
They passed the test, and then they cut out.
Our demo did, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if a company like Inmotion with a product that could have a catastrophic failure, like your helicopter falling out of the sky, if they give you a test and they say categorically if it passes this test it's safe, it needs to be 100% safe. There can't be any room for doubt. So we've been talking to them and just trying to convince them to release another statement to say, just hold on there, or to release some firmware that limits speed until they're sure. But there needs to be more transparency. We need to give them time to fix these problems for sure, and that's okay. But they need to be transparent with us, So I guess that's where we're at, isn't it? Ultimately, I mean, where we are with the permanent fix is there's talks of a new motherboard based on the high torque architecture that they're going to introduce.
Yes.
But they're being a bit vague about that in terms of whether they're going to replace all the boards, and also in terms of timeline, they're sort of saying March, maybe April, but still not sure. To be fair, there's chip shortages all over the world.
Yes.
It's not helping, is it?
And we replaced our Mosfets from a UK supplier, for example.
That's right, yeah.
And it's okay, it works.
But now there's another problem.
Now there's another problem with the wheel, the screen goes off, and when you stop the wheel is switching off by itself. That's really weird.
I think that sounds completely independent.
It's really weird. Anyway, from my point of view, Inmotion shouldn't really let these people ride their wheels at the moment.
No.
They should
I would call
release a statement and say you guys, we are sorry, this happened, it's okay, but don't ride the wheel. Because someone can seriously get injured. For example, one day before our V12 cut out, I was riding it with 30 miles an hour, jumping speed bump. So I was yes, speed bump, let's jump,
And it's really good at jumping as well, because it's quite solid.
Yes, I was lucky, but I did this, there were cars around me, people, what if I fall and the wheel goes and hit the pedestrian, for example. Inmotion is not going to take...
There's no liability there for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So look, this is it, and well put, and this is why, Francois, you've been kind of onto them, and we've been onto them, just trying to convince them, and trying to. I mean, I spent half an hour with Rob talking to them and saying, well, look, this is what happens if there's a serious accident in Europe, the States, and it's not like China. This can be to a certain extent, it could kill the whole industry. If there's a terrible accident.
Forget the region. Why is it even a case of trying to convince them about people's safety? They would never release a car with those issues.
Maybe in China they would. There's no product liability.
But have we heard of any crazy issues with cars over the last maybe 50 years?
Yes. For example, what about...
Okay, Tesla, that's a different story.
Not Tesla. What about Volkswagen and what happened with the
diesel go.
Yes, bravo. That they had to recall the car,
Yeah,
blah,
look,
blah, blah.
Okay, look.
That was huge.
Product recalls are common. This isn't, the issue here isn't whether products are going to have issues. This is groundbreaking technology. And of course there are going to be problems. The issue here is what happens when there's a problem. and how do these companies communicate. And as a community, I think we've got to make it really clear how we expect these companies to behave when there is. We totally accept that there are going to be problems. It's, you know, it's part of the reason that we're excited about this is because it's so fresh and it's so new, and it's so interesting to be in this space. But we have to accept that you know, this kind of rate of innovation, this rate of change, there's going to be teething trouble. So we have to work with the manufacturers and the designers so there's a safe space for them to do so without them thinking, oh well, that's the end of us then, you know.
Yes.
So it's a bit of you know, sort of give and take, but we need to encourage them to do the right thing.
Why don't they just sorry
So the faster that we go, the safest we need to be. So Inmotion came now with the V12, the first wheel that they haven't goes that fast. So I believe that because it goes faster, you need to put 2 times the testing, and like you need to make it even safer than the V10, because it's a different thing to have a crash with 25 miles an hour,
Twice
than
the speed.
40.
100%.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you know, I think as we kind of alluded to earlier, I think, you know, as a community, we've demanded faster wheels. We've demanded like, you know,
Well,
but have
maybe
we
you
really
guys
demanded
did.
safer wheels? Have we really? I mean, this is what I'm saying with the introduction of the V12. Everyone was a bit like, whatever. I still like Gotway. I'm like, hang on a minute. We've got a company here that potentially could be, you know, giving us a wheel that isn't trying to kill us if there's a drop of rain or whatever, you know.
But okay,
But
but
look at
look
it, out of the box, it's trying to give you out of the box.
Yeah, it didn't quite go that way. But look, it's just teething trouble.
But I wish they would just what it seems like is there's a rush to produce the newest, fastest, best suspension wheel. Why don't you just focus on what products you already have, spend a year or 2?
I'll tell you why. It's a small market, and these 3 or 4 companies, like
They're
they
at
need to
each other's
compete
throats.
each other,
Yeah.
like to take this. I don't know,
Yeah.
like what is there, like how much money? There are not much.
I mean, it's
There are not so many people that are riding EUC. There are not
Yeah.
us, for example, motorbikes or cars. So we
But-
have really smaller factors.
It's a
but
really
you,
weird
but
space.
you lose credibility for every time all these issues come up. So
Yeah.
how are you ever going to resolve it if you're just continuously pumping out wheels that have their own uses? No one's going to take
I
it
think they're
seriously.
just trying to survive at the moment. Like
Well, we're
Yeah.
trying to survive by not getting killed by.
True,
these
true,
ones,
true,
you know what I
true,
mean?
true, but
we shouldn't even be thinking about that.
we
but-
also love EUCs, like, and
Yeah.
we want them to produce them.
And you know, as much as I kind of like, you know, sort of tear my hair out, see, this before I had a fro, you know,
It's life.
I've got photos to prove it. So yeah, so look, I mean, as much as we tear our hair out about all this stuff, I mean,
Photos there, by the
ultimately
way.
we love it, and I ride an RS,
I've just
and I
got
love
an
it.
RS.
Right, you know, and
And
here's
I
the thing.
vouch I'd never get a Gotway.
Yeah. And you know, to a certain extent, the products are that exciting and that cool that we are, as a community, very, very forgiving.
Well,
you
we're
know.
all addicted. Remember when we
Well, there you go.
Yes,
It's
I was
just
all
the-
addicted
Oh, yeah,
to
addicted.
these, and that's why we're so moany about these things.
Francois, what do you think? As somebody who relies on this day to day, what's your attitude?
Yeah, like I ordered a V12, right? Because I thought, okay, I wouldn't have bought a Gotway wheel because the alarms, I don't think they were that good. Like some models, you couldn't hear the beeper, so it's a huge issue. Then I live in Stockholm. There's 2 people that I know who had his house burned down. Another one, he went to the hospital with being burned. You know, so it's like, oh, okay, that's not something I want to to go back. So and I know yeah, like I know why in terms of the BMS on the Gotway wheels, so they're not connected to the motherboard. So if there's an issue, it cannot alert the user to slow down, and then you can ride and like mess up the battery further. And it's all technical reasons. So for me, I thought, okay, Inmotion wheels. I learned on the V10 Ep. I thought, okay, great. That will be my winter wheel because you know there's winter here, so you want something that's waterproof and not like water coming in the trolley handle and whatever. And so I saw it. So of course I will order it. Then now I'm riding the Shaman because it proved itself very reliable. There's a huge safety buffer before you would overlean it and stuff. So I think that's also why a lot of people continue to write the gateway, because they think if I can hear the beeps, I'm safe. Like it's pretty good. It's predictable. You want a wheel that's predictable because then you can trust it. And a cutoff is like it's the opposite of predictability. So that's the problem that we have now. In terms of how Inmotion is handling that now, I think there's really some good things. They have a representative now that's interacting in the forums and on their Telegram channel. That's actually really responsive. That's very impressive. But there's still information that is given that doesn't reach necessarily the right people within the company. Like they were thinking that in the first batch, the first demo wheels, they had no issues, so they validated the design of the board. And actually, we learned that EUC in the US, they had a cutout, like the same as what's happening today, like a long time ago with the demo wheel. But in Inmotion's mind, like it was good, it was reliable. And in a discussion we had together, you told them, oh, we know that we can cut out in some cases. It's not the majority, but it can happen after passing the test. And yet a week later, the R&D department, they still don't know about it, or they don't necessarily think it's a reliable source. So that we have this perception of like, we are really connected with the community, and you are really connected with your customers. So like we are really, like we trust kind of each other within the community. We know what's going on. But in the perspective of a company, they will trust their own expert, their own expertise, their own experience. And any information that comes in, they were like, okay, we need to check, or we need to, like maybe if you're a software developer like me, you're like, oh, there's a bug. Okay, I need to reproduce the bug to confirm that it's real. That's not some, I mean, when you're a company, you have customers, customers do stupid stuff. They're like, they don't understand how things work. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'll look into it, So there's some of that. We have expectation that, okay, this is safety critical. It needs to be addressed now, like 08, like right now. Just tell us the wheel is not safe. Nobody will continue riding it. Everybody is fine. But there will be this latency. And then there's the fact that you mentioned the V12HT board. So they announced the V12HT board wheel with a stronger board, more durable and more power, peak power. But so talking with them, I realized that, okay, this board that's like on paper, marketing material, it might not really be like done. They are still evaluating Mosfets. They're still evaluating, the components. So
it's crazy that they'd be releasing marketing material on it, like giving percentages, like it's 23% more powerful, and they haven't finalized the design. It's like
that's what they do anyway. Like Gateway, the same.
Yeah, Gateway do it, but you're hoping maybe
that's the target, That's the target. At the same time, if like right now, maybe initially like a month ago they thought, that's good, and now maybe they're taking a second look at it and thinking, okay, wait, is it really working as we hope that the marketing team is saying? We should, double, triple check, and that's good. And then you were also talking about like the customer expectations in a lot of fields where there's recalls. That a recall for any product, automotive or any product, like it's something so common. If you have a battery, you might have a recall because the battery of your MacBook, it's nothing special. But in all these domains, there's like regulatory requirements, and there's an authority that will enforce these regulatory requirements if anything goes wrong. And now we're riding these vehicles that don't follow any rules or regulation, and yet we have the expectation that, oh, that should behave, that should be exactly the same, right? There's a problem, they will be taken care of, but right now it doesn't exist. So you as like leader in this as a distributor and the community, we have to kind of step in as this is like as an alternative to the regulatory requirements and enforcement. And the only enforcement we have is that, oh, we're going to stop buying your thing. And right now it's difficult because there's a lot more demand that there's offer. So there's.
I mean, it does actually. I mean, interestingly, that kind of Hayekian economics kind of argument. Well, if you throw a massive economic lever, then basically companies will react, and Bugatti has reacted. I mean, whether we like it or not, they've definitely reacted. They might have knee-jerk reacted, but they've definitely reacted. So something's happening.
The video with the drill and
that
wasn't the reaction.
It's not a great reaction. I mean,
that's like a dark comedy.
Yeah. So, all right. So anyway, that's where we are with the V12.
To add something, sorry.
Go on.
So for their defense, the V12 is the best wheel that I ever work on it. Like, guys, everything is really well done. All of the components, like, really well sealed. The wheel is beautiful inside. And it's such a shame.
Well,
it's
the
best company that they did it.
Okay, look. The good news is that we have a really well-designed, well-thought-through, cohesive design with the performance and the agility, all the specs that we want on that kind of mid-range 2,000-pound wheel. They've got an issue with the board, which it's solvable, and they will solve it. And once they solve it, the wheel's going to be really special. So
the reaction will be great.
I think for now there's uncertainty. There's uncertainty for people thinking, oh, my wheel passed the test, will it cut out? We cannot tell for sure 100% it will be fine.
Well, that's the takeaway.
In some cases that. And there's uncertainty also on Inmotion side, because they really want to be the safest brand, to make the safest wheel, that they really care about that. That's why they work there and not at another manufacturer. That's kind of the priority. That's why they're slower than others to be on like new performance and characteristics. But that's what they want. So for them, I think they're really disappointed in themselves to have failed here. But there's uncertainty on how to address the issue. Would that be a recall? That's what I'm asking, to replace everyone's board that they want. But they kind of in a situation where they don't know how to answer. They don't know how to address the issue until they're really confident that it's going to work. They have a solid solution. So,
and that's fine. But they need to tell us. If they tell us, look, guys, we need 30 days to really drill this. Please just, if you're going to use the wheel, stick to sort of under 25 kilometers an hour.
Blah, blah, blah. It's going to be fine.
And in 30 days, we'll release a statement. They need that structure. This is what we're trying to convince them to do. But it's difficult. It's always somebody else that they need to talk. Oh, we need to talk to blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, you don't need to talk to anyone. You need to basically say, look, categorically, we don't know if this wheel is safe or not, so please give us some time to report back.
And now we're talking about to a company, an organization, there's multiple people that might have different views, and it's like a bit like if you talk to someone that's like has a fear, maybe is a bit paralyzed on how to act. I feel it's a bit like that for now. Hopefully they will regain confidence and everybody will be happy with the result.
Yes, and it's a big issue for them. Like, it's their main product, and their main product is failing, right?
Yeah,
and
the deflection.
Like, you cannot really go back to the customer and tell him, like, you take the wheel, you swing it around, and if it doesn't cut out, like, the wheel is okay. It wasn't really good.
It wasn't the best. But look, let's move on. Look, I think enough said.
Yes.
But I think the takeaway is, guys, that if you have one, look, there are no guarantees. It's your own risk. But hey, take it easy. Obviously, and I think the problem will be solved.
The problem will solve.
It will be solved. But, I'm gutted because it was a choice for me between the V12 and the RS, and it was an easy sell just because there's no issue. Well, there's no announcement or anything saying that issue is going to be resolved anytime soon. So I'd rather go with.
It's going to be resolved.
They're saying March.
Yeah, but
there's a semi-announcement. It's not that they haven't said anything. It's just there's nothing in stone yet. But they are working hard on it. And they will. I mean, really, for me, this is a question of style rather than application. their application's good. They're trying to solve the problem. They're trying to fix it. The problem is they need to kind of understand the pressures that we're under in these markets, and they need to kind of understand that and appreciate that and communicate effectively.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a precedent. The V10F, initially, there was a problem with battery fires because the enclosure of the battery was not waterproof. So sometimes you had a bit of water coming in and it was taking fire. And they did the right thing. It took them a little bit of time. There was also distributors involved, but then they shipped to everyone. Okay, that's the case. You open your V10, you put the battery pack into this, and then it was solved. And all the new production.
A really good job as well. The case.
Yeah.
Right. So look. Okay. So there you go. Anyway, I suppose that kind of wraps up the V12 thing and wraps up our first EUC podcast.
Oh.
I know. So, look, thanks everyone. Francois, thank you for flying in all the way from Sweden to Stockholm, because we're a very international show.
Of course.
And yeah,
right.
let's we'll try and do a repeat soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Lovely.
It was a nice chat, guys.
No, definitely, and it was nice meeting you for the first time. So.
All right.
Happy riding, man. No cutouts.
Francois, if you
Stay
have any
quiet.
news, keep us.
Yeah, keep us in the loop.
And
Okay.
we will as well. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.